Alright, I'm Jonathan. I'm gonna try to demonstrate what I know about getting a deer butchered up in your home. Saves a little money because processing fees are a little high. Just gonna go through the basic skinning and cutting all the good cuts of meat off. Nothing too detailed, no grinding or anything. So I like to hang them up, but you can lay them on their side, skin one side, cut the meat off, flip it over, skin the other side, and do the same. That's how I used to do it until I got this gambrel. So however you want to do it, you just basically cut the skin off. It's like a giant rabbit or something. Cut the skin off and cutting the meat off. Keep it on the bone if you like, but I'm going to cut it off the bone here. Cut off whatever shoulder meat I can get. Of course, get the back straps. And probably going to save the ribs off this one as well. Not a lot of people eat the ribs, but there's some meat on them. So first I just get my little folding knife, make sure it's real sharp, and start cutting the meat off, or cutting the skin off. I like to run it all the way up to about here and then cut around. Up past here I don't use any meat. You can get meat off of as much as possible, but it gets to a point where it gets real tough and got a lot of silver skin on it. Here, I'll just cut all the way around. The sharper the knife, the easier it is. Then you're just pulling the skin off like any other animal. It's a little tougher being bigger than small game, but anywhere it gets stuck, you just use your knife and pull it loose. Use my knife to get it started. Usually you can pull it down a little ways from here. So I got all the skin off, and I usually start down with the shoulders and work my way up, but it depends on how your deer is home or if it's laying on the ground. And I also like to trim off some of the useless meat. You might get some use out of some of that, but usually trim down to the rib cage and get rid of this, because there's really not much on there. It's usually blood clotted, so I'll trim the deer up a little bit, and then I'll start with the shoulders. And down here, I'm not going to get much meat off of here because the way the bullet came in and shattered bones and stuff, this one completely broke the leg when the bullet came out. So I'll try to cut some meat off of the shoulder up here where it's still good. But when you're cutting the shoulder off, try to separate the muscle groups, and the shoulder blade will actually run up through here a little ways, and you can pop it out fairly easy once you cut a little bit. And you usually spread up, and you can make a couple of cuts. There's the shoulder blade in there. You can cut that all the way off the deer, and if it doesn't have a bullet hole in it, it's not messed up right now, you can use the whole shoulder for a roast, but I'm going to be trimming meat off of it, saving the good stuff. I'll do the other side here.
Yeah.
So assuming you don't have a gut shot and there's not guts sitting all over the inside, you save the tenderloins, and you can cut them out, but honestly, if you get your fingers up under there, you can pull them out by hand because they're real easy to separate. You'll get a really nice tender cut of meat. But it's on the inside, so keep in mind if there's gut material or something. That's why I try to be clean when I gut them. Luckily, these two were shot up in the chest and didn't get any gut shots, so I will save the tenderloins off of this one. And that's some really good eating. Try to run my fingers all the way up and get all of it out. It separates real easy. I'll rinse those off and put them in the fridge. When we got the shoulders off, I'll probably get the ribs last. But I'll go on up and get the back straps right now. It helps to get rid of this little layer. Just like a thin layer of meat and silver skin here, I guess. Fat or whatever it is. I try to get rid of this layer just because it makes it easier to make your cut on the loins. Your back strap will run along either end of the spine, basically from the neck all the way back to the hindquarters. All this stuff out of the way. Shows the back strap here. And I go and flip just like a fish. Go right along the spine, cut along with the bone. And then I'll run it up to, right up to the pelvic bone usually. And cut it down like that. Start trying to cut it away a little bit. And once you get it started, it usually comes pretty real easily. Cut along the spine there. And there's one back strap. That's the best cut of meat, in my opinion. Then you go and do it to the other side. Alright, so I've kind of trimmed things up here. It's still kind of clotted down here from the gunshot, but you can rinse it and scrape all that clotted blood out. But I've left a little meat on the ribs here. I'm going to cut the ribs off. Most people won't save the ribs, but there is some meat on them, and you cook them down, slow cook them, they're actually pretty good. So I'll just take a hacksaw and work down. Try to get the whole rib cage off. It doesn't take much to cut through deer ribs. You can get most of the rib cage here. And then you got the breastbone or whatever in there, probably cut around that. And I'll get the ribs off like that, and you can rub them up, put some butter on them or whatever, and cover them in foil and slow cook them for a few hours. They'll actually be pretty good. Where do I sit? Do the same thing the other side. But that's about what I'm doing, is cutting it up by the spine and then cutting it off from the brisket bone there. And, everything got clotted up in here, but there's also some good meat in the brisket. just take that to the sink and wash it off real good, get all the blood out of it. And the last I'll do the hams. So for the hams, you can cut down around here and then cut out the ball joint and have it on the bone, but I usually like to cut it straight off the bone. Makes it easier to work with later. But try to, I'm not the best at this, but try to work around the pelvic bone. Cut all the way around here. And try to cut it all the way down to the ball joint or down to the bone or whatever. And then I'll pick an area, usually where two muscle groups are separated, and I'll trim off. First I'll trim this off. Don't want to get fur on the meat. But, I'll usually go and cut along here somewhere, get down to the bone and try to cut the meat straight off the bone. It's just the way I do it. Cut around here. Yeah, I've got down to the bone now. See if I can cut the meat off of that bone in the middle. This is the way I do it. You can cut the entire leg off and do what you want with it. I like to debone it straight on the deer like this. There you get a good chunk of meat, and then you can separate out the muscle groups and trim off the fat and trim off that silver skin, the real tough stuff there when you want to prepare it. But for now, I'll let it age in the cooler for a few days, let it sit there and get a little bit more tenderized that way. Alright, so I've got all the major cuts of meat off. You can still get some shank meat, shank steaks or whatever off of here, and I've been taking some trimmings in a bag down there. Trimmings off of here where I missed spots. You can take little cuts of trimmings of meat and use them for stew or whatever, cut them into chunks. You could use sections of the bones, make stews or stocks or whatever you want. And there's some good meat on the neck. More so on a buck than a doe. The does are pretty slender, but there's some good meat down here as well. You can cut around the spine and cut out the windpipe, and you get some good neck roast. You got brisket meat if your bullet didn't destroy it. But I'll just show, for now, just show the major cuts of meat that I get off of it. All the rest is just little trimmings that you can also use as well. And now I'm about to lose this. That's about all I got to show for this deer.